Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. For those of you who don't know, my name's Rich and I run and operate the Hard Compound. We're a one-stop shop for all things motorsport, here just to share a love of motorsport in general, and we can be found on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and these chats can be found on YouTube as well. So do search for the Hard Compound and come along and join the fun. We cover everything from F1 to touring cars, IndyCar, rallying, bikes, NASCAR, the Legends Championship and the Euro NASCAR we've been covering this week. And these take the form of race reviews, race previews, throwbacks, birthdays, breaking news, new livery reveals, and anything that's going on in the world of motorsport, really. We put out 3 articles a day in the morning, at lunchtime, and in the evening here in the UK on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And in case you hadn't noticed, we also do live video interviews such as this one. And just like this one, these are broadcast on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. They're automatically saved in the video section on Facebook and in the live section on YouTube. We've had well over 100 guests now, which is very, very nice, ranging from the likes of Mr. Mario Andretti and Jackie Ickx and Hans Stuck and Chip Ganassi, John Watson, and people like that, through to like Stephanie Hansen and David Brabham, Mark Blundell, Mika Salo, Carl Wendlinger, Emanuele Pirro, Connor Daly, Malcolm Wilson, Ari Landike, Danny Sullivan, Will Power, Alex Palou, Alonso Jr. and the like. But if you're tuning in tonight, there's a very good chance that you like your touring cars. We've had a lot of the British touring car grid, the current grid, and recent drivers as well, and the support series. And we've had legends on, such as Steve Soper, Frank Sittner, John Cleland, Rob Gravitt, and others, including Jason Plato, which was fun. We've had a few drivers from West Surrey Racing, and we have got another one joining us this evening. I think he can be classed as a BTCC veteran now, even though he's far from old. Yes, he is. He just missed out on the podium this weekend at Thruxton, but he's had a very, very solid season, and he has earned this move to West Surrey Racing just last year, having been with Sicily Motorsport. So, without any further ado, we're going to bring him in right now. So please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Mr. Adam Morgan.
Hi, everyone.
Adam, good evening. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Yourself?
Yes, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad.
Good.
Yeah, firstly, thank you very much for coming on and having a chat. And I'm sorry for collaring you at Media Day. I've been meaning to do so for a while. So, yeah, thanks very much for coming on, having a chat.
No, not a problem. I mean, I just heard that long list of names you've reeled off, so I'm proud to be on that list. You know, I feel like I've made it.
Yeah, we've been very lucky. Lots of lovely people have kept saying yes, which is very nice. But yes, it's great to have you on the list. As I said at Media Day, I've been wanting to get you on for a chat for a while. So yeah, great stuff. Just before we get into it, I just want to say to everyone, say hello to everyone in the comment section. Evening, we've got Sharon Milburn, Diffin Evans, Kay Warren, Keith Mayle, and a few others as well. Plenty of you tuning in. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or comments, do put them in the comment section, whichever platform you're tuning in on, and we'll work them into the chat. So yeah, first things first. Adam, how was the weekend at Thruxton?
Overall, it wasn't too bad. You know, two 8s and a 4th is a pretty decent weekend. It's a pretty good haul of points. Qualifying didn't quite go our way. You know, I had quite a bit of hype before qualifying. I was interviewed by Tim and Louise, and lots of people saying, "Oh, Adam's on a roll of qualifying." And as soon as people start saying that, I knew they were going to jinx it. So we missed out on Q3, I think, by 9,000ths of a second. So we were close to making it into the top 6. But Thruxton, you know, as we know, once you're in that mid pack, is a difficult place to move forward. So we kind of sat there for race 1 and 2, and then race 3, I gave it everything. I gave everything I had, but unfortunately, the two Napa guys got past, Dan and Ash, and then Tom got me on the penultimate lap. But overall, you know, we can't be too disappointed with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of almost follows the trends of how the season's gone. It's been very solid, isn't it? And it just feels like it's getting there just from the outside looking in. It feels like, you know, a podium at least isn't far away.
No, I don't think so. And to be honest, going into Thruxton, all I really wanted was just a fairly consistent weekend. When I look back for before Thruxton, the first 3 rounds, every weekend I've had has been sort of like this, like a decent quali, a poor race 1, a decent race 2, an average. So I wanted just to come away from Thruxton. I wanted obviously a bit better, but just a weekend of 3 races, 3 results in the top 8, top 6. But yeah, no, we're moving in the right direction. We're getting closer. We're getting a bit faster. We're learning lots. This is the car this year is significantly different to last year. So we're all learning about it and making progress.
Yeah, which is, and we're definitely going to come to this year's car as well, because as you say, it's changed quite a bit. So I'll say hello to Kevin Whitewood from BTCC chat on Facebook. You are in his fantasy league team.
Well, I'm sorry, Kevin. Probably lost loads of points.
I think that's a smiling emoji. I'm sure it is. So,
yeah. Sorry, Kevin.
Good stuff. Yeah, but evening, Kev. Right, before we go anymore, I just have to, because I can't sit here like this all evening. Do you recognise these?
Yes. Wow. Blast from the past.
For those of you who don't know, I think it was during lockdown, wasn't it? There was a BTCC charity sort of auction thing, and I managed to secure Adam's race gloves.
They've seen some action, those guys, haven't they?
Back in 2019. So there we go, and he very kindly signed them. Look at that, isn't that lovely? Anyway, I'm going to take them off because they're really warm. Anyway, I thought that's me being an idiot fan. Done. So right, okay, more sensible stuff. So what I like to do is kind of start right at the start, really. Obviously, you've got plenty to cover, and we'll try and squeeze it all in. But where did your first kind of interest in motorsport come from? Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember obviously being very young, probably 5, maybe 6, something like that. And at the time, my dad was a racing driver, so I've ever since I can remember, I've always been going to circuits and just watching him race and being involved in it ever since from a very, very little age. And he used to race in Caterhams in 1994, 1995, and 93, 94, 95. And he had all of them on VCR. And I used to watch those 3 VCR tapes on repeat. And I could name every single driver. I could name every single track. I knew every race result before I even watched it. And I think it was at that point where my dad was like, I think he likes motorsport. This is the route we're going. So just very early on, just sort of drawn to it. And I think just being around it and in the paddocks and the atmosphere, you just kind of get hooked from an early age. And that's what happened to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's obviously it helps being immersed in it or around it as you were. But I think it's the same for a lot of the fans as well, who maybe aren't from motorsport backgrounds. And I'm talking about myself here. Once you see it and it just triggers something, it never leaves you, does it? And with your dad racing, I guess that was it was only a matter of time before you started to show an interest in having a go yourself, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it was probably about 7 when I got my first go-kart. And I mean, I'm small anyway. But when I was 7, I was like miniature. So I remember this go-kart, and he used to put like 3 cushions behind me. And he used to take me to his work. And when everyone had finished work, I used to razz around the car park just to get used to it and handle it and stuff like that. Crashed into the wall, obviously, because if you don't crash, you're not trying. Even
absolutely right.
And then it went from there. Really, just started doing a bit more. Started joining some championships when I was 8. Started in Coma Cadets. Did 4 years in cadets, and it was mega because at that time you could get away with a dad and lad team. It was my dad, a Sprinter van, and a go-kart, and we'd just go and do some club events and just sort of get involved and learn a bit. And he obviously thought I was not too bad. I was obviously all right at it, so we stuck at it. And yeah, we just kind of got the bug, and before we knew it, we were doing Champions of the Future, Super One, all the big championships in karting, and we had some decent results. We did okay. and just up and down the country like a yo-yo. Every single weekend we were off somewhere. It was mega.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. We sort of do love that lad and dad kind of kind of thing. And as you alluded to, it's kind of rare now, isn't it? Or it's much more rare than it used to be because costs are going up, as we know. And it's just a nice way to start, isn't it? And it's
yeah.
And there's so many that have come from that kind of background that have ended up like doing pretty well. And I mean, were you quite competitive as soon as you got on track? Because some people just sort of, I did it for a bit of fun, and then I got my first win, and then I started being really competitive. Or were you always kind of?
I think I was always quite competitive because I've grown up in an environment watching my dad, who's wanted to go out and win. That's why he was doing it. He was doing it because he wanted to win. So there's always an element of, I want to go there and race against these people, and I want to beat them. Sometimes when you're 8, you sort of lose concentration and lose focus, and you go there to see your friends, have a bit of a laugh and have some fun. But actually, the whole point of you going there is to learn your racecraft, do your racing, and essentially go and win. And so I've always been competitive, and it doesn't matter what even if we play Monopoly at home, I want to win. Golf, anything, I'm a competitive person through and through.
Yeah. Are you one of those people that are kind of a bad loser, but kind of quietly? Because I am. Even if I lose at crazy golf or something to my mates, if we're just doing something silly, and go, okay, lads, well done. I'll buy you a pint for winning. And inside, I'm secretly absolutely raging.
Fuming inside. Yeah. Try and get them back somehow in like mean ways without telling them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just do little things to annoy them. How dare you? How dare you beat me? Good. Yeah, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one. So obviously you've gone through the karting. You said you got some decent results and feeling competitive, and you haven't got tired of it. When did you first start looking into cars? Because your first, as far as I know, your first experience of cars wasn't on a race track, was it? It was within rallying. Was that your first?
It was rallying, yeah. So, my dad, he before he moved to circuit racing, was a rally driver. And I used to remember just sat on the sofa watching WRC, when it was on Channel 4 and the coverage was mega. And my hero growing up was Colin McRae. I was a kind of a rally guy through and through.
Yeah.
And it was quite strange, really, because I finished karting when I was 16, so quite early-ish, because my dad wanted me to focus on my GCSEs and my A levels. And I was playing a lot of rugby as well. So it was difficult because I was missing a lot of school. So we said, let's knock it on the head, focus on your exams, get your results, and then we'll look at something else. During that time, my dad started historic rallying in a Mark 1 or a Mark 2 Ford Escort. And I started obviously showing interest again and loving it, and we decided to have a go. So we got me a baby blue 1600 Ford Escort Mexico. It was beautiful. It was absolutely mega. And so I started my car career, so to speak, started on rally circuits. And we started off on little single venue ones, like at Three Sisters in Wigan.
Yeah.
Doing rallies around there, and then we moved up to some of the bigger ones, over in the forests. I can't remember the names now, but over in the forests and doing proper stage rallies, and loved it, And what was really nice was my dad was rallying with, and his co-driver was Martin Kenyon, and his son Chris was my co-driver.
All right.
So we had a real dad and lad. My dad was in a 2-litre. So he's in a 2-litre Pinto. I was in a 1600 push rod. So he was in the bigger one, and me and Chris were in the smaller class. And it was just such a nice thing to do, dad and lads off going rallying, having a laugh, having a crack, and just really good fun. Yeah, really, really enjoyed it.
Sounds excellent, and it's a good way to sort of learn, some like real car control, isn't it? And real high speeds, tricky situations, things like that. Very quickly, I had a rally driver on 2 or 3 weeks ago. And she was saying that she was a bit more scared of doing the co-driving because obviously it's out of your control. You've got complete faith in the driver. Did
Yeah.
you ever have a go at
No,
like
absolutely not. No, I would never get in the passenger seat. No, no.
I'm not surprised.
No, thank you. No, I'd like to. It's even here when I'm at home. If any of us are going anywhere, designated driver.
So
I don't like being passenger or being driven. I'd like to be behind the wheel, in control. It's up to me. So
yeah,
pace notes and all that. That's somebody else's job. That's not for me. But I've got to admit, hats off to the people who do it because
yeah,
it's a skill. Is that it's a real skill.
yeah. I mean, I always liken them to the passenger on a sidecar. You've got to be a different kind of crazy to just do what you're doing.
Yeah,
having complete faith in the guy with with
I mean, you're not even looking where you're going, and you kind of calling your notes off the feel of a corner, thinking, right, I said that one, move on to the next one, and it's an art form, really.
Yeah,
Those people
absolutely.
are far too bright for me. I can't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't got the mental capacity to do all that.
Yeah, agreed. On my part, not on yours, by the way. Sounded terrible, didn't it? So, did you ever want to pursue that kind of route? Were you ever looking at the bright lights of the WRC at all?
But at the time, I don't. Thinking back now, I just was just loving it and just was carrying on in the historic championship. I think we won our class actually, that 1600 class, which was mega. Chris and I, and because at that time, I wasn't aware really of the financial aspects. I know it was there, but so I was just sort of going along with my dad, and he was enjoying it. We were all just enjoying it. So aspiration-wise, it was just carry on as we are, just keep having fun, keep going. And I'm not really sure why, but my dad decided to buy a Ginetta G50 track day car.
As you do.
So that's how we sort of made the switch from rallying. And I remember we went for a couple of track days, and I set off in this G50, and it's almost like all the karting memories just came back, just like boom, straight away on circuit racing. And that competitiveness when I saw a car in front of me going, I want to beat him, I want to overtake him. And I think that sort of led me back into circuit racing, much to the annoyance of my co-driver, Chris, who wanted to carry on rallying. But it was that's how I ended up back on track, really.
Yeah, it was that kind of like direct competition rather than go as fast as you can and then see how you went. It's that.
Yeah.
Which and I'm glad you kind of made that kind of little comparison there to karting and Ginetta, because it leads on to the question that I usually ask. People that have gone from karting into cars, whether it be the JSCC or Ginettas or whatever series they've taken their first steps in cars in, half of them have said it just felt like a big go-kart and it was second nature to me. Others have said I struggled with, not being central in the car, with depth perception and the roll and the weight shift and things like that. Yeah. How did you find it moving into the Ginettas? Because you've done a bit around it, of course, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, I'd probably had 4 years out of karting by this stage. So I didn't really get back into rallying. I finished at 16, didn't really start rallying until I was, I don't know, probably 19, 20, something like that.
Right.
So I was driving by then and I was used to a car. So the switch for me wasn't really a big thing. I didn't really think about it. But I do know exactly what you mean, because I used to be one of the instructors on like the Ginetta Junior scholarship. So I did that for probably 4 years. And I used to remember jumping in the passenger seat of all these Ginetta Juniors, and I was scoring them as I go around the track. And you get these karters jumping in who, these were top level karters, but they were only 14, never driven a car before. And they were just throwing him in like a go-kart. And we were just spinning off, going everywhere. And I'm like, you've got to remember, this is a hell of a lot heavier than a go-kart. Yeah. There are certain, but it's all part of the learning curve. It's all part of the process. But I can see, people would, that switch from one to the other does take a bit of time. It's just, but it's a natural thing. It just happens the more and more you do it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna drop him in it. I think it was Scott Sumpton who actually said, yeah, when he got in the car in a car for the first time, he thought, I thought I could drive. I can't, you know. Sorry, Scott. I'm sorry, mate. Dropped him in it, but no, but he's obviously done very well as well. But I think it just depends on the person, doesn't it? Then, I mean, being central in the car makes no difference to me because I did a little track day thing at Thruxton about, I don't know, sometime in March. Okay. And for end of the first sort of lap round and stuck it into Campbell, the complex, and spun. Yeah. I spun it. So I thought, well, as you say, if you don't have a crash, you're not trying hard enough.
Exactly. Yeah, you gotta have a crash.
I was going to say, I didn't find the limit of the grip. I found the limit of my talent. And it was a pretty low bar.
Talent exceeded.
Yeah, ran out of talent 2 corners in. Yeah, never mind.
Good effort.
Yeah, good stuff. I've also got here that you had a couple of races in the Mazda MX-5 Championship and the Ginettas as well. Again, just all part of the learning curve, isn't it? Just getting.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is going back now a lot of years, and I'm old and my memory's going. But I think again that was just sort of like not a stepping stone. I think you have to do those races to get your signatures on your license, right, so you can move up from a novice into the higher categories. But those, you know, those sort of classes, those club races, MX-5s and Ginettas, I do remember in the races, they were so much fun, and it was so competitive, and because everyone's in such equal machinery, and they're low powered, and you know, there's so many people on track. It was a perfect way to, like I say, dip your toe in, but before you know it, you are at the deep end, getting swallowed up by 20 G20s or 20 MX-5s. So you have to be on your game.
Yeah, and that's as you say, it's a good environment to learn in, isn't it? You know, if you make a mistake, you've dropped 10 places or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Which is great. Well, some good questions coming in, guys. I have seen them. I just want to say hello to Andy Hopley, Hoppers from Motorsport Vlogs, making his way home from work and tuning in. He said he remembers watching your dad rallying an orange Mark 1 Escort a few years ago.
That's it, yeah.
Northwest stages in Blackpool. Well, if it's Blackpool, got to be orange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Them's the rules.
Yeah, that's it. I remember going to watch him actually, which was quite nice because I could just sit there and have a few beers and watch the old man throw an Escort around. So it was good fun.
That's a good day.
Yeah.
Happy with that. You mentioned the G20 Cup, the Ginettas. One thing I did spot, you took your first win in that series. I think it was your first win in cars out at Pembury. Absolutely brilliant circuit. I assume you quite like racing there when you could.
At Pembury, yeah. I mean, it's we actually went and did a 2-day test down there with WSR this year,
yeah.
and I think I did that G20 race whenever that was, 2008, something like that. Then I hadn't been there again until we went there with, God, like, it must have been like 8 years. But it's a mega circuit. You know, it's got some really high speed, some real technical corners, and that fast right-hander onto the start-finish line is petrifying. That's a scary corner. But honestly, I remember, you know, you reading these results back. I'm like, God, I can't really remember that. But it's always, like I said, it's always nice to get your first win on the road, and it's those G20s were strange things to drive, but they were good fun and competitive.
Yeah, good stuff. Great. I think this question might come up in the comments anyway, but there's always talk about new circuits being added to the BTCC calendar. Just a quick sidestep. Pembury always gets mentioned, so does Anglesey and like Mondello Park, and places like that. These, I don't want to say out of the way circuits, but they're a bit off the beaten track compared to the ones that, you know, most of the circuits that get used for the touring car. If kind of logistics and circuit facilities were up to scratch, I guess you quite welcome going to those circuits, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you look at all the, let's say, the shorter circuits on the BTCC calendar, so your Knockhill, your Brands Indy, even your Silverstone, those shorter circuits, I think, provide some of the best racing, because qualifying, the whole field is separated by less than 8 tenths. You know, so everyone's extremely close. The racing's always really good. And I think Anglesey would be a mega place. I really do think that'd be a really good track. Like I say, it is a shame that the paddock, won't be able to fit in. But if it could, I would definitely say Anglesey would be one of the places that we'd all like to go and race at.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a terrific circuit, and
Yeah, it's good fun. It's good fun.
it's a long way from anywhere. I mean, it feels like it's a long way from Wales, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, beautiful backdrop with the sea in the background and all
Yeah.
that. It's a lovely place.
Yeah.
Always very windy every time I've been though.
Yeah.
But
I think Jacob Ebury would like it for his photos, wouldn't he?
he'd get some crackers there.
He'd have a field day. Talented chap. Yeah, great stuff. Okay, yeah, nice one. Just to kind of fast forward a bit. Is it around where were we? Yeah, around like 2010 or no 2009 when they step up to the G50, with was it Dynajet racing. How did all that come about? I mean, obviously you've done a bit of genetics and you'd won a race, and and you just wanted to progress, I guess.
Yeah, so we knew Frank from karting, and he's probably half an hour from us. And once I'd done those Ginetta races and the MX5s, and I got my license and got it upgraded, we thought, right, what's a good next step? And we looked around at some racing series, and the G50 was getting more and more popular. It was on the TOCA package, which was at the time, is really important for sponsorship and publicity.
Yeah.
So we decided to give it a go. And what you could do at that time was you could join the Friday practice sessions. So I went along to a couple of the Friday practice sessions, just to go and see where I was, get a baseline on how much I need to improve, what I need to work on. And we did a couple of Friday tests, and I was kind of in the mix. I wasn't at the front, but I certainly wasn't last by 4 seconds. I was somewhere in the middle. So at the end of that year, we said, right, let's go and join Frank and let's have a go at doing a couple of races. And what was really good at that time, Frank was, he was like one of the front runners. So I had a really good teammate who could really lead me on and teach me. Because at that time, I've never even looked at properly in depth at data or laptops or anything like that. So I was a complete newbie. Had so much to learn and so much to take on board. So it was a perfect situation. They were half an hour away. Frank was at the front winning races. So it was really good for me just to learn.
Yeah, this is great, and obviously it's a natural progression as well from where you'd been. So I've just seen a comment pop up from Norman Burgess. I
saw him pop up at one point.
People are going to know who Norman Burgess is. We know. Everyone loves Norman.
Is it not? You can't broadcast it. I'm guessing. I guess it was.
No, it's fine. It's just
right.
It's completely well. It kind of seems innocuous. It might not be. It might be an in joke. But he's just said, "What's your favourite animal?"
Yep. Yeah. All right. I get it.
Is it best if we skip forward?
We'll leave that one there. We'll move on. Yeah, we'll move on.
I thought that might be. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, Norman, and I do hope you're well. I'm intrigued. I'm going to ask that off air. That's one for later. Yeah, so in the G50, so you got your first podium at Rockingham, which is a circuit that a lot of people miss, particularly the drivers. Spoke with Dan Lloyd last week. He absolutely loved it there. And the first win in the series at Croft. Two circuits that are really underrated. Well, certainly Rockingham, because it isn't there anymore.
Yeah, no, it's a shame. I mean, I've always enjoyed Rockingham. I think that race, in fact, going back to Norman, that race in the Ginettas when I got my first podium was in the wet at Rockingham, and crossed the line, took the flag on the podium. I think my dad was in a ball of tears somewhere, and no one had anyone. Well, my dad didn't know where the podium was. So I finished the race, got out of the car, went to the podium, and the only person there was Norm cheering me on, because no one expected it and no one knew where it was. So I just Norm was stood there clapping me and giving me a high five. So yeah, Rockingham was a great track. Always provided good racing, and to date, it's my one and only pole position. And it's the last one ever. It was the last one before they shut it down. So
Wow.
I took the last ever pole position at Rockingham.
Wow. Well, there you go. That's pretty cool. That's a nice little thing to have, isn't it?
I'll take that.
Yeah. Super. Yeah, it's a real shame. What happened to Rockingham? It just didn't quite work out, did it? With the
No.
with the Open and everything. Real shame. But you know, you got podium there and first win at Croft, first win in the series. Always nice to get a win, as you say. You know, up in the north, or more north than some. It's almost a home circuit for you, I guess. So that must have felt good.
It was. I'm trying to wrap my brain to remember what happened now, but anytime you're on the top step of a podium is always nice. You know, it doesn't really matter how you get there, but winning a race and winning my first one in what was a top tier championship was mega. So and I think I do remember it. I think it was Father's Day on that day, and I dedicated it to my dad. And again, he cried. He is one of those. Unfortunately, he is a crier. I think I remember that. Yeah, I do. Yeah,
that's nice. It's always good to make the old man cry for happy reasons, isn't it? Rather than
exactly
scratching the car or something. We like happy tears. We like that. So yeah, excuse me. I just want to fast forward to around. Norman's just said it was very awkward. I think that's return. I think that's talking about the podium at Rockingham. Lovely. It's either that or the animal, which makes it even more straight. But we'll leave that one. 2011. Correct if I'm wrong. Was this when Sicily Motorsport was set up? Was it around that kind of time?
Yeah. So
I'm always fascinated into what goes into setting up a motorsport.
So essentially, what happened was at the end of 2010, Frank won the Ginetta G50 Championship, and so he decided to go as a family team and move up into touring cars. So we were without a team, and in that year, Ginetta brought out a new car, the G55. So, you know, having taken a couple of podiums and been quite competitive, we didn't want it to finish. We wanted to carry on. So we bought a Ginetta from Ginetta, and we ran it out of my dad's shed at home. And we set up Sicily Racing, as it was called back then. And it was just, again, dad and lad, me, my dad, Martin, who was my dad's, Martin Kenny, who was my dad's co-driver. Martin has literally been with me since day one, and he's still here to this day looking after me. So we started that up, and then 2011 for me was one of my best years racing I can ever remember. We were a very small one-car team, and there was 3, maybe 4 of us at most, and we were taking on these big teams like Century and TCR, who were running 2 or 3 cars, and we went and won it. You know, that was probably one of my best years racing I can ever remember. And it came with a pretty decent prize as well, to be fair.
Well,
so yeah. everyone wanted to win it that year. It was very, very competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, with like barely a handful of people, working on it. I mean, you can't have had any real expectations of how you were going to go just because of the way motorsport works, and if something goes wrong, it costs, and there's only a few of you doing it. But I've got here, you took second at Brands, third and second at Donington, and then at Thruxton you went second, first, second. I mean, that's the opening 3 rounds. I mean, after that kind of Thruxton weekend, I'm not sure if you remember, but do you remember thinking, well, this is going well?
Yes, I was on the podium regularly, And what I do remember, really well though, is at the start of the year, Tom Sharp he absolutely destroyed everybody. He won the first 6 races in a row, and he was in a different stratosphere. He had just gone, and essentially it was like a battle for second place between myself, Carl Breeze, Nathan Freak. I think Benji Heverington was in it, and there's a couple of others, who were very quick. But yeah, that Thruxton weekend was a turning point. I think I was after Tom's run, I think I was the second person to get an actual win on the road.
Right.
So that was a really strong weekend for us and helped us close the gap. And I don't know. I remember looking back and thinking, when you look at the results we had in that year, I think I only took maybe 1, maybe 2 wins.
Yeah.
But I managed to get like 18 podiums, and it was just consistency that got me through it. And I think Silverstone was the last race of the year, and that was the one where I had to beat Carl Breeze in the very last race, and I had to beat him, or I had to finish 1 behind him and get fastest lap, or I had to something, but it was very, very, really close, and it came down to like a matter, I think, like 2-3 points to claim the championship. It was it was mega, and like I say, probably still one of my best motorsport memories that I've got.
That's fantastic. I've actually got it that you had 3 wins that year.
3, okay. Even better.
Thruxton, Snetterton, and Brands, and it was by 5 points. So dominated it. But winning the championship. Obviously, we're coming to what came with it very, very shortly. But just winning the championship, I think you're on the podium on that final race anyway. You're up there. You're the champion. That must have felt absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, just almost. Yeah, I can still remember it. And almost not really believing it. Just thinking, what the hell has happened? How have we managed to pull this off? Just in a 118-ton truck with an awning and a car and some northern lads just running around bolting tires to it. And it was absolutely mega. And like you said, Nathan Freak rejoined the championship for that year, so he could have a go at winning this prize.
Oh, right.
So the competition was fierce, and it was a really difficult year, but just managed to be consistent, keep the points ticking over, and it was just amazing. It really was one of my best years. It was fantastic.
Absolutely brilliant. Obviously, with the small team that you had as well, David and Goliath type thing, which is always good to hear. Just before we get onto the prize, which is going to lead on to the main bit of the chat, you did a round in the British GT Championship with JHR at Alton Park that year, I believe. Did you ever kind of look at, was your eye ever on that route?
At the time, I'd say no. We got the offer to go and do the race at Alton I think it was in a Ginetta. I don't think we did very well from memory. I think we had a problem with the car when Stefan was out or something like that. I can't remember, but once I'd got onto the TOCA package, and I was surrounded by the big boys in the touring cars, that was it. That was the goal then. It was all very nice and lovely being in the Ginettas and in the support paddock, but driving past all those cars in the pit lane and seeing your Neils and your Platos and stuff, it was like, that's where I want to go. Yeah. That's where I need to be. So that was the goal. So it was nice to be asked to go and do that race, but GT for me wasn't the option.
Yeah, and I guess obviously with the prize that came with the championship win in the Ginettas was quite good. A fully funded BTCC drive with Speedworks, wasn't it? That's a heck of a. If they offered that now, there'd be carnage in the pit lane, wouldn't there? Trying to get it. Because
I remember it going out in the press release, and then I was just like, wow, what an opportunity! This is unbelievable. And so it was a fully funded drive. I think it was the biggest prize in British motorsport for God knows how long. And the drive went out to tender, so I could go and talk to a few teams, or teams could see if they wanted me and whatnot.
Right. Okay.
And we went and spoke with Christian and Amy over at Speedworks, and again, they're fairly local. They're probably an hour away, near Alton Park. And we just gelled and clicked, and we thought, right, this is where we want to go. They were running a Toyota Avensis with Tony Hughes, and I don't know if anybody else or not, but we thought, yeah, well, what a nice team to be involved with, local. So we picked Speedworks and went with them for 2012.
Yeah. I actually thought of this just as I was putting all these notes together. Obviously, it could be described as a free hit, couldn't it? Straight into the BTCC. If you hadn't got that opportunity there, do you think you'd have looked at another series on the Toka package at the time, or would you have stayed in Ginettas, do you think? Or
possibly stayed in Ginettas, but I can't remember which year it was. It must have been at the end of 2010. I got asked to go and do the Porsche scholarship. It might have been at the end of 2011. Not too sure, but I got asked to go and do the Porsche scholarship, and I didn't get it. And I remember leaving the Porsche Centre at Silverstone and just being furious. I didn't speak all the way home because I thought, that's it. That's, where I'm going to go now. My career's done,
Right.
And but I remember driving the Porsche on Silverstone and just thinking, this is a piece of kit. It's fast. It's just a proper race car, just a really well built race car. And I think that could have been an option had we not have won the prize otherwise. But yeah, it was a long journey home when you go down and they pick 2 other drivers out of 6 and you're not one of those guys. It was a very quiet journey home.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be a bit demoralizing. Yeah, I can well imagine. But you won the championship, got in the BTCC. Slightly bigger car. The Toyota Avensis isn't the smallest car. Very, very good, car when set up right. How did you? That's a good question from Diffan Evans. We'll come to that in a minute, Diffan. Yeah, the Toyota Avensis. What did you think when you first got in it? Because it was obviously, I guess, the biggest racing car you've driven up to that point.
Yeah, and it was the first time I've ever done front wheel drive as well.
Right.
Never done front wheel drive before, so a huge learning curve, and everything that you have in Ginettas in terms of data and the amount of setup you can do on a Ginetta triples, almost quadruples when you jump into a touring car. There is just so much to take on board, so much to learn, technique, just a huge step up overall. And I think my first test day, I think Christian actually asked James Thompson to come down for a test, and for him to go through the car and see if he can improve it and do stuff like that. So that was again a really good learning curve. I remember listening to him talking about setup and toe and rear geometry and roll sensors, and it was just straight over my head. I was like, my God, you might as well be talking French. So there's a lot to take on, but fairly quickly got to grips, I'd say, with front wheel drive. Although if you look at the results for that year, they definitely don't prove it.
I think it's one of those situations where the results don't tell the full kind of story, but they very rarely do. But obviously, it was a different car, much bigger car, as you say, front wheel drive. First weekend, I'm just going to skip over this. It didn't quite go as well as planned.
The first weekend, the safety car did more laps of racing than I did. That puts it in perspective.
Yeah, I've got DNF, DNS, DNF. I mean, not the best start, but just prior to the expect the results out of the situation. How did you feel on the grid for the first race? I mean, were you sitting there? Because I don't know if I'd be excited or nervous, or I remember talking to Matt Neal when he started racing, and he was leading in his 3rd race or something down the back straight at Snetterton, and he said he could barely keep his foot on the accelerator because his leg was shaking. He was so nervous.
Yeah, I mean, petrified, really. Even the media day was scary because you've gone from a support paddock where you have a lovely crowd of people who come and see you and sign autographs, but that is 5 times bigger when you hit the touring cars. And I was just like some little strawberry blonde kid from Lancashire, and all of a sudden I was thrust into the limelight, and there was cameras, and I was stood next to Plato and Giovanardi and all these names. I'm like, oh my God, am I out of my depth here? So it is intimidating, it's nerve-wracking, but at the same time, I was a young kid who had just won a championship. I'd only done 1 or 2 years of car racing, and had progressed up this ladder pretty quickly.
Wow.
So I was pretty also very naive. I went into it thinking, how hard can it be? And it turned out pretty hard. So, yeah, it was, again, it is just a massive step and a huge learning curve at every weekend was I had to learn more and take on more, and it was hard work, to be fair. It was a hard, tough first year into touring cars.
Yeah, sure. I can well imagine. Just want to pick up on a couple of highlights. I mean, yeah, you got your first couple of points finishes at Donington, which was good. Then strong end to the season, top 10s, Knockhill. 10th twice, sorry, at Knockhill, and then into the into the single figure placings towards the end of the season. Was it just a case that you'd learned the car a bit and the series, and you were just getting to grips with it all, and things were just starting to gel towards the end of the season?
Yeah, I think the more I was doing, the more I was getting into it and relaxing a bit, and not pushing. I don't know how to describe it really, but not forcing myself to think I have to go and win every race. Let's just go out and to be honest, because it had been such a tough first half of the year, I just didn't want any more accidents. I was just having accidents left, right, and centre, and we did have a few car issues throughout the year. And this is no disrespect to Speedworks, but they'd only run Tony Hughes before, who, by his own admission, I'm sure he'd say he was a gentleman driver. Then I jump in it and start pushing the brakes a lot harder and more. So we had issues where we'd run out of brakes at times, and just little things that were probably hadn't come up before. So there were lots of DNFs and crashes, and the more I was doing, the more I was getting used to it. I was getting used to the racing side of it, how ferocious it is in touring cars, and more of where to place a car and where not to. So towards the end of the season, we got into a little bit of a rhythm, got some points finishes, a couple of top 10s. So we finished on a high. But when I say it was a tough year, I remember going to Croft, and I think we had probably another couple of DNFs. And I remember got out of the car, walked back to the motorhome. I just broke down. I just I can't take this anymore. I just really upset, angry, frustrated. Why isn't it coming together? You go from winning a championship, plumb last, you're not finishing, you're crashing. Yeah, I just broke down and just had a really, really tough baptism of fire into touring cars.
Yeah, well, as you saw on the notes I put together, you said you had that run of DNFs in the middle of the season. I said, does that affect you as a driver? And obviously, clearly it does, and of course it would. But so at the end of the season, it did end on a high. You hadn't been discouraged from it, and all of a sudden, going from a 4-person team in Ginetta a couple of years earlier, Sicily was now a British touring car team. How did that? Because that feels like an enormous undertaking, and you ended up. Was it Frank Russell's? Frank's old Dynojet car.
No, it wasn't Frank. So at the end of that year, me and Dad had a really long sit down, and because he was as equally disappointed and frustrated as I was, and we were both convinced that I was better than what I'd been on those results and that year. So I think we bought one of Speedworks' old Toyotas. That's how it came about.
Okay.
And again, in the shed at my dad's house, we ran a touring car team from there, which again was my dad, Martin Kenyon. He came and joined us. He also worked at Speedworks, but he came to work for us. We had a couple more people, obviously, because it's a bigger undertaking. But then Sicily, so we bought that Toyota. We managed to get Paul Ridgway as my engineer for the year. Really well-known, well-renowned, experienced engineer, and he came on board. And we said, we'll have one go at it, just to prove to ourselves that we can do it. Adam is not down here; he should be up here. And that's how Sicily Racing formed, and into touring cars we went, and we've never looked back. We're still here.
That's amazing. So running a BTCC team from essentially a shed. That's incredible. And I guess you said you were in it just to prove to yourself that you could do it, and you were on a learning curve as a new team, I guess.
Yeah.
At least in name. But it was a pretty consistent season, wasn't it? I mean, you were kind of floating around the top 10 most of the season. You took a best yet of 7th I've got here, then 6th, and
I think it might have been round 2 at Donington in that year. Either round 2 or round 1, I can't remember, but I went out and I got 3 5ths in a row, and I scored more points in that one weekend than I scored all year.
Wow.
In the year before. So all of a sudden, I'd gone from this terrible season to, in one race weekend, I was like, I think that's like P5 in the championship. I'm like, I can do it. And that just, really got us going and got us moving forward. And again, it was just a nice environment, surrounded by family and friends, racing in the top level of British motorsport. Again, still a dad and lad entry. We had a few more people come and help us.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was just great, and we were competitive. We were racing against these big names, and sure, the manufacturer cars were still pretty quick, but we were holding our own. We were doing all right.
Yeah, and I think you got a top independent, like round win, which first season.
Yeah,
absolutely no mean feat. You got first fastest lap at Donington, and then Alton Park, and this is your home round. And obviously, prior to that, you're getting the shot in the arm of how you can drive and the results you can get. The team are feeling good, thinking, well, we can do this as well, even though there's not many of us.
Yeah.
And was it your first series podium at Alton Park, your home round, and the only people in front of you were Andrew Jordan and some chap called Turkington? That must have been, you must have had quite a celebration when that happened.
Well, I do remember that race, because Andy Jordan and Colin had gone. Behind me, I think for the last 6 laps, some bloke called Matt Neal, who was just hounding me on every single corner, every lap, just pushing me. And I was almost crashing in a straight line, because I'm in my mirrors so much, thinking, where is he? Where's he going? What's he going to do? And somehow we held him off, and came across the line for my first overall podium in British touring cars. And it was just mega, because everyone works so hard. It's me who stands on the podium, but the amount of time and effort, money, my dad had put in, and Martin, and I think there was Tubby and Jeff were there. They're all there. They're all part of it. So it was just a really nice way to do it, and to do it at my home track as well was even better. So yeah, there was a few beers had that night.
Good.
That was race 3, so
very pleased to hear that. But I'm just to put that in perspective. This is the first year as a team, and you've just managed to keep Matt Neal at bay. And obviously, Matt kind of knows what he's doing, and just a bit. And wow, that's I mean that, and you had to earn it as well. It wasn't like someone dropped out in front of you and you inherited it. You had to defend and earn it for everyone, which is fantastic. And you finished 7th overall, which for the first season can't really ask for much more than that, can you?
No, for us that was pretty good. I think we had a couple of bit of a mid-season dip. You know, we did have some weekends which didn't go to plan, obviously, but overall, I think from finishing like P22 to finishing P7 in a year is a pretty good turnaround.
Yeah.
We showed what we were capable of, what we could do, and I think most importantly, we proved it to ourselves that we could do it. You know what I mean? And I think had I had stopped racing at the end of that year with Speedworks, I don't know what would have happened. Maybe not have gone racing again because it was demoralizing.
Yeah.
So, but that was it was nice, and yeah, thanks to my dad for believing in me for that one more year.
Yeah. And it kind of became a bit of a springboard for what was to follow. And so you've had that successful year with the car. Firstly, was it then tough to change car, knowing that you'd obviously got pretty well to grips with Toyota? And secondly, why the Mercedes A-Class? Because I absolutely love that car. It's absolutely brilliant.
It was mega, and I remember when people, were putting pictures out in the press and the Merc was there, and I've got so many comments of just like, oh, look how good that looks. And but the reason for the Merc is because our family business is we sell Mercedes-Benz trucks and vans, Sicily commercials in the Northwest, and so we thought, right, what better way, what can we do to try and get manufacturer support? And maybe approach Mercedes and say, we'll build a touring car. We know all the right people within the company because we're a dealership. Let's give it a go. So we had a look around loads of different models and stuff, settled on the A-Class because I think at the time the Civic was winning everything. It's similar sort of body shape, silhouette. So we went with the A-Class, and I mean, luckily, I was still quite new to it. I've only done 2 years of touring cars. So we had Paul Ridgway basically design the car and develop it. So we had all of his input on how to, to build the car. And the Mercedes A-Class touring car was formed.
Yeah, fantastic. And it was a brilliant car. And there's a comment here from Diffan Evans, evening Diffan. He said that he thought the 2013 livery was one of the best liveries there's been. The blue livery really stood out with the orange wheels. Absolutely right. Yeah, we love the look of that. And it brings us on to the livery you had for the 14 on the Merc with Wix. Wix filters, black and yellow. 2 colours that I like, as you can tell from the logo of the page. I've always liked black and yellow. So I think that's why I kind of took to it. Getting a title sponsor like that on board is a huge thing, isn't it? And I guess being in the BTCC, the TV coverage, and be able to offer something trackside as well, that's a big sell, isn't it, to any prospective partner?
Yeah. Well, we were very lucky. I think that year, Norman, who we spoke about before, he actually came to start working for us, and he became our sponsorship, the guy to go out and find a sponsorship and try and get some more money into the team. He later basically ran the entire team towards the end of Sicily's life. But early days, he was going out and finding a sponsorship, and we were approached by Wix at that point, and I remember them coming up, and we took them to our Sicily's head office, and they came with a picture of the car and all that kind of stuff, and we thought, right, we need this to happen. And Norm worked his magic, worked his wonders. He's got away with words. And before we knew it, we had a black and yellow Wix touring car, full title sponsorship, and away we went. Yeah, it was a 2-year deal, I think, or maybe a 3-year deal with Wix. Wow. But that doesn't come about every day. Those sort of things don't happen every day, and it was a long process, and all had to work bloody hard to get it. And and it was a great relationship, and I'm still friends with Wayne now from who we did the deal with originally. So it's important to keep those relationships going.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, it's rare to get a big title sponsor and to commit for that amount of time. Obviously, with the nature of the motorsport is. Just in another comment from Norman, he said, "If it wasn't for me, he'd be nothing." Come on, he said thank you now. Come on.
He'll just be sat there laughing to himself. I can imagine now, just giggling away.
Love that. Obviously, quite a different car to drive, slightly smaller, and maybe back towards what you'd started in. Was it easier to get used to going back to the smaller car with the A class than it was to going up to the Toyota? Because
to be honest, because obviously the cars all had the same equipment. When I started, it was the first year of NGTC, so we all had the GPRM equipment on the cars, and you can tune the cars to how you wanted it to feel. So yeah, the Toyota was a lot bigger, but the Mercedes, although a lot smaller, kind of handled fairly similar. It had strengths and weaknesses to the Toyota. It was quite a bit stiffer, was a Mercedes. But overall, it was fairly easy to switch on to the Merc and get it moving pretty quickly.
Okay. With regards to the results and everything, I mean, it was another year of upward trend. With the results getting better, and just as things do like that, and obviously culminated in and it culminated in your first win. So your first win in the BTCC. I mean, I'm not even going to ask how that felt, because it was a silly question, but it was at Brands Hatch on the penultimate race of the season. It's just the best way to end it. I mean, what was going through your head when you were?
If I remember, if it's the same one, I think it's the one where I managed to get into the lead, and then going through, is it Westfield? I actually threw it off.
I wasn't going to mention that, but yeah.
Across the grass. Jason, well, everyone always brings it up. Plato, Norman will bring it up if I don't mention it. Plato got back past me, but then he had a penalty. So Plato won on the road, but I inherited the win because of his penalty. So yeah, I remember thinking when I lobbed it off, I was just thinking, what have I done? How have I thrown this away? Devastated. And then it all came full circle when I got the penalty. But yeah, your first win in touring cars it's hard to describe. You're at the top level of British motorsport, one of the most competitive championships globally, and you've gone out there and you've won a race, and I feel like I can because I've been in it so long now, when you see new people get a win like Ronan did not so long ago, you remember that feeling and just how how much it hits home, how excited people get and the thrill of it. And it was mega. Funny story about that win, actually. I had one of the guys who worked for us, I had a deal with him. If I got a win in my first year, he would get a tattoo of me on his body. and if I didn't, then I had to hire him a car and chauffeur drive him around town for a weekend. So
only mention of a tattoo can only ever end well.
So I got the win, and then he stuck to his deal, and he's a big chap. He's got massive calves, and he's got a full picture of me on his leg with the Brands Hatch circuit around it. Full size, like it's this big. It's ridiculous. So fair play for him to go and carrying it on and getting it.
Wow, that's amazing. Because he could have gone for a small likeness sort of
Well, that's
somewhere on
what
the
I
ankle or
thought. It would
something.
be tiny and somewhere hidden, but it's his full leg. So I'll get a
That is,
picture of it. I'll get a picture of it and send it to you so you can see it.
oh, please do. That is a man of his word. That's
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. I mean, I do feel that your punishment wasn't quite as bad as his one. I mean, I
No,
mean,
it definitely wasn't. But he did say if I was chauffeur driving, I wasn't even allowed in the pub. I had to sit in the car with my hat on. Oh, I had to hire the suit and all that. Do it properly. But I had to just sit in the car with my hat on, wait for him to come out, move to the next pub. So luckily, I got the win.
I guess that would have been more annoying than anything else. But yeah, wow, that's absolutely amazing. What
I know.
that's superb. That's superb. I think this is in reference to when you went off at Westfield. I'm not going to use the exact words, but Norman has commented. He says, "Long pedal, my backside."
Well, he's plenty of experience of driving race cars around
yeah.
racetracks. So he'll know about getting a long pedal and pad knockoff. So he will know.
Yeah. I still don't think he buys it by the looks of it. That's cracking. Question from Lisa Reinhard. Lisa, we'll come to that very shortly. Nice little fun question. So, so you got your first win. Absolutely superb and 10th overall. Always it gets on to 2015. I always thought with you 2015 felt like kind of a breakout kind of year, like a one where it all really kind of started to come together. That's what it looked like from the outside looking in. Just in terms of the results. Just a quick run through, and you had third at Donington behind Colin and Matt, and then third at Thruxton behind Flash and Matt, and then Thruxton race 3, another win. I mean, you started the season right at the very front end of things, and did the car feel different, or was it just a bit of confidence from the year before and a year under the belt in the car, things like that?
I think just making improvements. Just learning little bits all the time. Because at the time that car was only, is that its second or third year? I can't remember now, but it was we're just making it better and better. Just learning more about it. And I remember for about 4 years, I just seemed to get to the Brands, Donington, Thruxton first 3 rounds, and I would just be bang, 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 on the podiums, right at the front. I think I led the championship after Thruxton 1 year. It might be, I can't remember what year it was. But we were just making small steps, moving forward. And just, I was growing in confidence, getting faster and faster, and becoming a bit of a more established front runner. But it was in that time period, obviously, where we had the Success Palace.
Yes.
So I kept finding myself having these really good 3 rounds, and this will probably cover 3, maybe 4 years worth of racing. I would have a really good 3 rounds and lead the championship or third, or then I go to Walton and Croft and have to carry 75 kilos of Success Palace, and so it all just kind of unraveled for me. I just had these mid-season dips, which just kept on happening, and just before I knew it, I was back down in 6th, 7th in the championship. It just shows how competitive it is and how fast it can turn around. But it seemed to happen over and over again. Then I'd have a bit of a reset and a calm down and have a strong end to the year. But yeah, not sure why. Just never seemed to really, pull a full year together, which was annoying because, like I said, it would happen for 3-4 years in a row.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not going to dig into the next 2 or 3 years in detail because obviously we'll be here until about 3 a.m, which is fine by me. But I don't know. But
I can't remember them.
But I mean, just want to quickly touch on that Thruxton. It was the first win on the road, wasn't it? Without the penalty, your first sort of. I don't want to say proper win, but you know what I mean. It was,
It was, yeah.
And am I right in saying you were on pole, weren't you? And then you just had to keep them all behind you.
I basically did what I didn't do on Sunday. Basically, what happened was I got off the line and I disappeared, which is what I didn't do on Sunday. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a reverse grid pole.
Yeah.
And a lights the flag victory. And I do remember it being the longest race of my life.
I was going to say, did it feel like a lifetime?
Just every lap, just getting information on the radio. Right, the gap is 4 tenths, the gap's 5 tenths, always the gap's 3 tenths, and you go, oh, guys, getting closer. Then you pull out a bit of a lead. And I think even now I remember asking how many laps are left, and he was like, you've got 8 laps to go. And I thought, God, I thought I only had like 2 left.
But I've already done 20, you know.
Yeah, it's I remember that now.
Yeah. I mean, and not that you can ever relax at any circuit, but there's nowhere at Thruxton where you can kind of switch off. At least at Snetterton, you might have a couple of seconds on the straight just to breathe a moment. But Thruxton, it's so quick, it's so full on. I mean, you must have been exhausted by the end of it.
I mean, Thruxton's it is a mega circuit, and every driver, although it's fast and you're hanging on to it for dear life, we enjoy it because we enjoy that element of it. We enjoy that being on the edge and throwing the car in at 120 miles an hour into church. And I think Tim Harvey alluded to it on the one that happened on Sunday. Look at how wide Adam's eyes are. I was only behind the safety car. You're on stalks from lights out to till you cross the line. You are just because it's such a fast circuit. One little mistake, you lose so much time. Yeah. So you have to make sure everything's right every lap to pull it off. And luckily we did that year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all came good. Just to generalize, I mean, you kind of touched on it. The next 2 or 3 years in the A class, you said there were like little mid-season dips, and you mentioned about you started well and you got the ballast. It feels like a silly question because we know like the ballast makes a difference because that's what it's there for. Just how difficult is it when you're driving with top, one of the top weights, strapped into the passenger seat or behind you? I mean, it must upset the balance of the car no end.
Yeah, I mean, you put the weight in the car and then you get the car on the flat patch and you corner weight it. So you do your best to address the balance issues of what it's going to cause having that in the passenger seat. But I remember that year when I took the win at Thruxton, and then I went to Walton Park with the 75 kilos in. And I remember setting off for free practice, genuinely thinking I had engine trouble. Just thinking I'm down on power, and it was just the weight. Wow. And if I remember, I think I was leading the championship, and I think Tom Ingram was second. And I think I qualified 25th, and Tom qualified 23rd. And Alton Park is probably one of the worst circuits for carrying weight.
Yeah.
And that was our genuine pace. I think we were just down the road. Just nothing we could do about it.
Wow.
So it did made a significant difference.
Mm. And we'll come to the hybrid shortly, but there's a lot of fans, certainly in the first year of hybrid, when there were teething problems, things like that, we're calling for ballast to come back. From the fans' point of view, it did make it thrilling because you had guys at the front going backwards, guys from the back coming forwards. I forget which year it was, 17 or 18. We had 18 different race winners or whatever it was, and a lot of it was down to that. The fans were talking about ballast coming back. Were the drivers wanting it back, or were you thinking get it out the door?
I think it was different for different drivers.
Yeah.
I know Tom Ingram wanted it gone because he carried 75 kilos a lot. It made his life very, very difficult.
I'm sure, yeah.
For other people, it gave us an opportunity, shall we say, to get that win or to have one of those races where you can start in P10, you're on the decent tyre, and you can work your way through the people who are on not the best tyre and carrying weight. So it just swings and roundabouts. That was almost like snakes and ladders. That's how the championship works. up you go, and then before you know it, 75 kilos on, back down, and start again.
Yeah.
So, but I can see from a fan's point of view that it would make the racing exciting.
Yeah.
Because it did what it was supposed to do, black and white. You put it in the car, you weren't going to win race 2. That was not going to happen.
Yeah.
Which is why, I can completely understand their argument when hybrid came in. For the first couple of years, it didn't do what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was the issue. But then it's a case of, you need to make it good for the drivers and the teams involved, not necessarily for the fans, but then you need to keep the fans engaged. And it's just one of those things, isn't it? It's one thing I want to touch on, the change of title sponsor, Mac Tools. They're still with you. Obviously, you said it was a 3-year deal with Wix that ran out, I guess. Now, Mac Tools, I loved it. I love the car, the black and red. I think I liked it even more than the black and yellow. Controversial take, but again, it's good to get a sponsor on board that can be a title sponsor pretty much, and then continue that relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Mac Tools have been with me. I can't remember how many years now, but it's been a very long time. And again, this is all down to Norm. He had a relationship with them. I think he carried that relationship on from Frank Raffle, and then carried it on and brought it over to me. So that 3-year deal with Mac Tools, full title sponsorship, is all down to him. And 2-3 times a year, I will go to these big Mac Tools events, meet all the franchisees, and nearly all of them now I know really well. They're friends. Because I've been going that long, and they're just great bunch of people. Just lovely to have on the car, and just so grateful that they're still supporting me after all this time.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great, and obviously, very, very good group of people. And you took a few wins in that Mac Tools liveried car, which we've all seen. But I, as many people do, are going to focus on something that didn't quite go so well. 2017, that fire at Alton Park. So many people have messaged me saying, "Ask him about it." What was it? All right. I think it's your home round, your home circuit. That's not what you want to happen, obviously, anywhere, but certainly not at home. What happened? And it must have been terrifying, because I spoke with Dan Camish last year. He had a fire at Donington. Is it the worst case scenario for a driver?
A fire is pretty horrible. And especially one, I think Dan's was similar to mine, where there's nothing, and then it's just in flames, like you were just engulfed. Like there wasn't like a little bit of smoke. There wasn't something that gave it away. It was a fuel line that split on me, and it just poof, up it went. And every driver throughout there every year has to do a cockpit exit test, where you have to get yourself fully strapped in and get out the car within 7 seconds in case there's a fire. Everything that you do, the order in which you do it, steering wheel, seatbelt, window nets, jump out, I did backwards. I tried to get out the car before I'd undone my belt. I left the steering wheel on. Just sheer panic, get me out of this car as fast as physically possible.
Yeah, because obviously the test doesn't factor in the panic and what's just happened.
Yeah, I literally did everything wrong. Instead of taking me 7 seconds, it took me 17. But just that urgency to get out, you forget to open the door, you forget to open the window net. You're just in such a panic. But when I realised when I got out was I'd left the car on, so the car was still pumping fuel in, so the fire was still just going. So I got out, ran away, and then thought, bloody hell, hang on a minute, it's still going, it's still burning. Is this? I know why. So I ran back in and had to put my head in the door and turn it off just to make sure it just didn't burn into a ball.
Going back to the car when it's on fire must have gone against every instinct in your body. You must have been thinking, don't go back, don't do it. But I guess you had to, obviously, to switch it,
Yeah,
just
I
to
mean,
get it
once,
turned
once
on.
I was out the car, I was a bit more,
You
I'm
were.
out now. I'm not trapped. I can get out. But then I knew that the car was still running, and I could see it just doof, doof, like pumping the fuel in. So I thought, right, this, if I don't go and put it out, fire extinguisher is not going to help. It's just going to keep on going until it runs out of
Yeah.
fuel. So yeah, I had to go and run back in and turn it off, which
Crikey.
wasn't fun. And ever since Alton Park that year when I took my first ever podium, Alton Park has probably been one of my worst circuits I go to, and then that fire just topped it off.
It just, yeah, a big exclamation mark at the end. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, not good. Well, we're obviously, we're obviously glad that you got out safely, and obviously Dan did the same a couple of years back. Terrifying stuff. Just really quickly, you said it's not been great to you since then. Apart from 2020, now 2020, very difficult year for everyone, COVID, and we couldn't do the trackside corporate stuff and have all your sponsors and things like that. And you just got Carlube on board, which was a big
massive.
name to get on board. I mean, it must have been mighty frustrating to have got them on board and then everything take a huge dip, a massive dip.
Yeah, that was tough. That was a really tough year for everyone.
Yeah,
Not just for the for us drivers, but just everyone on the whole. And driving around circuits when nobody there was just like surreal. There's a really strange atmosphere, and I think the few people had to pull out because sponsors, they couldn't afford to keep backing people because of COVID, and it was an odd year. But again, what a incredible another title sponsorship, all thanks to what's his face again, Normski.
yes.
All down to him. He should be. I don't know if he's still listening because it's well past his bedtime. He's an old man. He should be.
We are saying nice things about you, Norm. We are. I mean, he's obviously very, very, very good at what he does. And just want to come to Alton Park very quickly, but something that did happen, and I want to touch on it. I know we can't go into too much detail. Dan Rowbottom would come in 19 with Cataclean. You'd already expanded to a 2-car team with Tom Oliphant and previously. 2020, it seemed like Dan was going to be back in the team, and then he wasn't. Obviously, Jack Butel came in. Jack had raced for the team, hadn't he, in GT, I think. He's done something in GTs, hasn't he? But he was around. And I think a lot of people were surprised when Dan wasn't in the seat and Jack had come in, and maybe some people didn't know about Jack, things like that. Obviously, I appreciate you can't say too much about it, but what actually happened there within reason with Dan? Because
like I said, I don't want to go too much in depth into it.
No.
And everything that's happened now is in the past, and it's been done, it's been dealt with, and it's all friendly and smiley now. But yeah, it was all quite last minute, and a bit sort of put us on the back foot a bit, because if we didn't get, once Dan had said no, we had to get another driver in that car, otherwise we'd have lost our license.
Right.
And at the time, there was a huge demand for touring cars and not a great deal of supply of licenses. So licenses costs were through the roof, and the rules state that if you don't have a driver on that grid in that car, you will lose your license unless it's through force majeure. So we had a big panic and went talking to loads of drivers, and thankfully Jack came along and he jumped in for us.
Okay, good stuff. That's good. I mean, obviously, glad that you did, and there were no repercussions for it. Obviously, the highlight from that year was the win at Alton Park. A high point. We all saw what it meant to you, and it obviously felt like it wasn't just a racing thing. It was just the way the world was and what everyone had been through, just in their personal lives. That's got to be one of the best memories from your racing career, hasn't it? I mean, just because of the situation that everyone was in, and to get a home win as well.
It was a big moment, that, because the Merc at that time was very old.
Yes.
It had been around for a long time. they'd been crashed a lot, so the cars were battered and bruised, and there were times when I was driving the car on the ragged edge, and I was like, I can't go any faster. I am literally on the limit, and I was still half a second off, and it was really, really frustrating. And that year, hadn't really gone to plan. We weren't where we wanted to be. I think we looked in again to another reverse grid race 3 pole, and it was the second year that BMW had just come out, which I think was Tom Oliphant and Turkington. And I set off in the Merc, and I had Oliphant trying to go at me for 4 laps, and then they'd swap, and then Turkington would try and get past me for 5 laps. He couldn't do it, so they'd swap again. And that was one of the hardest and longest races I've ever had. But because of the year we had, I was more determined than ever to fight for that win. I was going to do everything I could to have that win. And the people who watch the championship a lot will know that I cried during the interview. So but my eldest had just been born. He was only 6 months old. But it was just a monumental sort of day, just to have that race 3 win in a very old car, holding off these 2 new BMWs.
Yeah.
In lockdown at my home track. It was Carlub's. It's their home track as well. So it was just rounded off perfectly. My little boy was there. So my dad's emotional gene passed on to me, and I couldn't speak to Louise. I kept breaking down.
No, I think given the situation, I mean, and with what been going on in your personal life, family, and everything, it was great to see it. It's good to see that kind of stuff. We don't want the robotic. Yeah, it's nice. I've won. Well done to the team. Let's move on. It was a proper motion. It was great to see. Okay, let's very quickly. Yeah, I'm going to move on from the Mercedes now. Diff Van Evans has asked, he said, were there any more changes you could make to the Mercedes, or was it just pretty much done at the end of 2020?
The touring cars, there's infinite number of changes you can do. There's so many spring changes, geometries, roll sensors. You can go on, you can do so much. But, at that time, when we built the Mercedes, we were running GPRM components, and we'd learned a lot about the GPRM stuff and their components and how the car worked. And then we moved to RML, and I don't think it liked that switch as much. It didn't quite seem to come alive in the places, and we really struggled in particular in the wet. It's almost like the chassis was just too stiff. So I think we were fighting a losing battle. I don't think we'd ever have done wonders in the car. We could pull off decent results, top 5s, top 6s, but I don't think we're ever going to be, as the years went on, we're ever going to be strong enough to mount a serious attack.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. And every kind of car has its day, I suppose. And you moved on to the BMW. It was WSR built, wasn't it? Just quickly, how did you settle on the BMW? Going back to rear-wheel drive, and then the little deal that you did with WSR to use one of their built cars. Just how did all that come to be?
It took months of debating with my dad, because we were actually this close to buying a Focus off Motorbase.
Oh, okay.
So we were in talks with Motorbase, who are going to build 2 cars. We're also in talks with WSR, who are going to happy to build 2 cars. And it kind of came down really to, at that time, the BMWs were the quickest, and a bit cheaper, which always helps. But and the history of WSR speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So we thought, right, okay, and the deal we had with WSR was, for the first year, they'll also give us, would be a little bit like a satellite team, where they'd supply data and stuff like that. So which was a big help because it was a new car to us. So that's how I ended up with 2 WSR cars, 330s. But again, it was a massive expense. They cost a lot of money, these cars. So it was a big decision. But yeah, and I'm happy. I'm fairly happy we did it. But it was, like I said, it was just a big cost.
Yeah, big initial outlay, I'm sure. And the results were pretty good straight off the bat. You and obviously Tom had come on board and got that you won at Brands that year, and had a couple of podiums at Alton Park, and and you you had a win. Did you have a win? I think at Thruxton as well. So I mean, yes, I should know because I was there. I remember that. I was watching it at the complex. But yeah, I mean, it was a strong first year, wasn't it? Given that it was a new car.
Yeah, no, we did quite well. I think we surprised ourselves really how we got those results quite quickly. And it was great having Tom on board because Tom's been around for years. He's got a lot of experience. He's very quick, and yeah, I think we took a win at, was it Brands Hatch? I think pretty early on, and another race 3 one at Thruxton, and that race 3 at Thruxton, I managed to hold off Colin, who's in the factory team, and had all that experience. So it was really good. We still weren't there every weekend because we were still learning the setup and adapting it to each one. But yeah, I think we shocked ourselves a little bit at some of our results. Most of them were reverse grid, quite lucky ones, but we were definitely getting better and better every weekend and every season.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the other side, and on the flip, and on the different tag, the cars did look brilliant as well. We got car gods on board.
Yeah.
Absolutely
great. I just turn my light on because I know it's gone pretty dark in here.
Yeah, no worries. I'm aware of the time. We're just going to rattle through a bit. We always try and say about an hour and a half. We always run over. So a good first season. Second season, I've got to talk about George Gamble because he came in, and no disrespect to George, I don't think anyone saw him coming in and doing what he did in that first weekend. Obviously, the weather at Donington played a part, but you guys made the right call with it, with the setup and the tyres and the weather and everything. I mean, were you a bit annoyed because you finished 5th? You had a really good weekend over that, and everyone's talking about George.
No, it was mega because, and this is absolutely no disrespect to any of my teammates in the past at all. But George came in and just, hit the ground running. Just like, wow, he is quick. And I always go out there and give it everything. But when George came along, I was like, I've really got to up my game now because he's going to beat me. And you always want to beat your teammate.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, George. And that's what the team needed. We needed a second driver who was strong, fast, running at the front, and getting the team results, not just me having a good result or the teammate. Or we were both up there having a good weekend, and that first weekend at Donington was just mega. Me and George were at that weekend. We were faster than the Works BMs, so it was a hell of a weekend, was that? And hats off to George. He wasn't scared, was he? He was straight on it.
No, I mean, I think it was all anyone could talk about across the social media afterwards. It was like, did you see him? Did you see what he was doing?
Yeah, fair play.
Yeah, he did very, very well. And excuse me. And again, you're always kind of running at the front end of things. You had some top 4s, top 6s. You were beating the factory. The factory cars. Really solid all year, very steady. But when did the team start discussing maybe calling it a day? Because that was the final year, wasn't it? For 2022 was the final year for Sicily Motorsport in the BTCC.
Yeah, it was a tough year because we've been running Sicily Motorsport now for probably 8-9 years, something like that. And the introduction of hybrid increased costs and put us under a lot of pressure, performance-wise, and hybrid in the first couple of years wasn't very reliable, having lots of issues, costing us more and more money, doing more testing. And even though we had a second driver and we had a title sponsor, we always wanted to go racing for the enjoyment of it. And we were never there to make money. We were always there. So long as it could pretty much wipe its face, we were quite happy. And it just got to the point where my dad was like, we're putting our hand in our pocket more than we should be, and it's just the ball just kept on getting like a snowball effect, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah. And the scales were just tipping the wrong way, I guess.
Yeah. And we were, just trying really hard to do what we could, but it was just costing too much money. Yeah. And when that started to happen, I could sense in my dad that enjoyment and that love was still there, but it had definitely started to waver.
Sure.
So we started having a few discussions, and for me, his enjoyment, that's what it's about. If he's not enjoying it, then for me, it was a pretty clear-cut decision. As horrible as it was, because how lucky am I to wake up every day, go to the race unit, work on a motorsport team, go and race cars every weekend. I mean, I am the luckiest person on earth. So to turn that down and to say no was horrible. And all the people who work there, this includes Martin, who'd been with me since that rallying 2007 era. He was still there as chief mechanic.
15 years down the line.
Yeah. So it was pretty horrible. But unfortunately, it was a decision that we had to make to be sustainable, and just to carry on.
Yeah. And
it was tough.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that's got to be the first thing, isn't it? I mean, I think it was Andrew Jordan said the same thing. He says, I'm not throwing money at this. He just wanted to get away and enjoy other parts of life, which is, which you've got to look after first and foremost. No, it's fair enough. It was a real shame to see the team go, because there was a lot of people missed the team. But that sort of leads us on to a question from Sharon Milburn from earlier. Evening, Sharon. She said, how did the deal with WSR come about? Did they approach you, or did you approach them? I guess you already had a working relationship with them. So was it? Yeah.
We kind of put a few sort of rumours about, and a few people contacted us, and we were speaking to a team that's not in the touring car paddock, but in the support paddock, and we got quite in depth with them. And then WSR, they obviously heard about the rumours and came and approached us.
Okay.
And to be honest, it couldn't have worked out any better, really, because they wanted to expand to 4 cars. We wanted to pull out of the championship, and it just worked perfectly, because we were able to just sell everything in one go. Cars, spare parts, engines, you name it, anything touring car related, WSR came along and said, we'll have it. So we went from a full touring car team to an empty warehouse in 3 days. They just came up in a couple of trucks, took the cars, and that was it. And as part of that deal, I managed, as part of the deal of, I managed to get a 2-year drive with WSR. I mean, it's kind of something I've always wanted to do, because I've never, when we look back for this interview, everything I've ever done was dad and lad. Everything from karting to rallying, Janettas. So it never been anything different. So I thought, I wonder what it's like not having to pack an awning up. Not having to wash the trucks. And to be part of WSR is amazing. Fantastic opportunity.
Wow. I mean, just to go back to that 3-day thing. I mean, from the outside looking in, that looks a bit brutal, almost, doesn't it? It's like, but if you're gonna end, a team, that's the way to do it. You haven't got to worry about getting rid of things and anything like that. But right, it's all gone. We
Yeah,
sold it all.
it was essentially.
It's almost
Yeah,
it's like ripping off a plaster, isn't it? It's
that's
just like,
it.
right.
Just rip the band-aid off. We'd done the deal, and because it had been quite a long process doing the deal and getting everything across the line. So by the time they came up to collect everything, me and my dad, we'd done it. Do you know what I mean? We'll go into the workshop and thinking they're not ours anymore. So, we were, when it had gone, it was like, wow, that's it, end of an era. And and the amount of people who've come up to me and said, we really miss Sicily Motorsport. What a team! And I think one bit people miss the most is our hospitality.
Yes.
That was Norman's department, and he did a pretty good job of keeping everyone pretty well entertained, lubricated, and we had some amazing times in there, some parties. So yeah, that's one element I think a lot of people miss. But just we were just a friendly northern team who went racing at a pretty high level.
Yeah. And you went racing for the right reasons, and that obviously came through, which is fantastic. I am very aware of the time. I'm just going to rattle through. There's some questions flying in here, but I'm going to whiz through. But obviously, joining WSR, Dick Bennett's absolute legend. I mean, what he doesn't know isn't worth knowing. I had him on here, and I could barely speak for the first 5 minutes because it was like, and they've been around for so long. They've so different, in F3 and all the different kinds of motorsport. Again, no disrespect to Sicily, it was a smaller team and family team, but I guess it's like another level. I mean, with the setup and everything, must be a very cool place to go and race.
Yeah, it's mega. I mean, you just go and walk around there and you see all the history, the trophies, all the cars they've run in the past, from from F3s all the way up the ranks in Super Tourers and whatnot. They've done it all, with some pretty big names. And it wasn't until we went for that first meeting and Dick gave us a tour and round, and we're like, look at the size of this engineering room, the machine room and stuff. And we're like, we didn't even have one. They've got this huge room full of machines that they can do all themselves. And that level, it was just another step from what we had. So yeah, just fantastic to be a part of that, and to have my name etched on a WSR wall, if you like, is a huge thing that I'm very, very proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine. And obviously, with the drivers you've got, to work alongside. Obviously, you worked was it alongside Stephen last year. Obviously, your second year with Colin, you got Jake. We've had a weekend of Bobby. Hopefully he can come back. Whatever the deal is there. And just different. Colin is, I think, a very similar driver to you in many ways. That consistency and just rather than smashing into people and things like that. But Jake's very aggressive, and he's had a couple of good weekends and stuff. I mean, I guess you must all work pretty well together. Just bouncing off each other. Not literally, where possible, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It's a really nice. It is a nice environment to be in. Me, Jake, and Colin, we all get on really well. Having never worked having never been another team before, it was interesting for me to go into a team and just be a driver, because I'd never experienced that before. So the whole thing of moving there was a really strange thing for me, and it took me a long time, I think, to settle in, just because I was so used to the whole Sicily environment and being surrounded by the Sicily team, and I could do what I wanted to do in there because it was my team. So it took me a bit to adapt to it, but being part of it is mega. And it's funny because you don't know what to expect. But Colin is the quietest, calmest person you've ever seen out of a race car. He's literally gets out of the car, takes his helmet off. He's got a little deck chair in the back of the truck, and he just sits there, puts his specs on, and flicks through his notes from like 2004, and just reads all his notes and studies. He just never stops from the minute he wakes up on Friday. He just never stops looking at setups and data and studying. Whereas Jake, he likes to go for a little nap between FP2 and quali, and between race 2 and race 3. He'll have a little lie down and a sleep.
He's never told me that. He's never. That's never come up.
Yeah, he'll have a little lie down, have a little sleep, and he'll literally sometimes wake up, 15, 20 minutes before a race, and you'll see him, and he still looks sleepy and knackered and stuff, and then boom, helmet on in the car, and he's 100 miles an hour rocket ship.
Wow.
So it's very interesting. Yeah, just very different the way people approach it. So it's brilliant.
I love that. Just very quickly, you touched on the car this year, a few changes. Has it taken a bit of getting used to, or I guess you've been able to do some more testing and just get to grips with it? Because there's a new aero package and there's all kinds of different bits, isn't there?
Yeah, they've worked really hard over the winter. Put a lot of time into it, a lot of money, a lot of effort. And it is a very different car this year. The handling wise, the car is in a much better place. And I think out of all the teams on the grid, I'd say WSR have made the biggest step forward. And I think we've closed that gap a little bit closer to the front wheel drives. But yeah, we're still learning. And we got back from Thruxton. I didn't get back home until 1 a.m. Monday morning. Took my kids to school, 7 a.m. Monday, got back here, and then straight away I'm thinking, right, let's look at Alton Park setups and let's figure out what we did last year. And the Alton Park setup we had last year looks almost flipped upside down to what the setups trend is for this year.
Right.
So it's strange how the balance shifts and moves around. So I had a 2-hour Zoom this morning with my engineer, just looking at what we've learned this year and then looking at last year's setup and thinking, right, what can we learn from that? What can we learn from what we've already got, and try and put something together for Alton Park, next weekend. Because ideally, all you want to do is you just want to rock up on the first time you go out the track on Saturday. You want the car to be somewhere near. That is, if you do that, you're going to have a good weekend. But that's easier said than done.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And so just to, I'm aware of the time, I'm going to rattle through some things. Obviously, the rest of the season, obviously, it starts with Alton Park and things like that. I guess your hopes and targets for the season ahead, podiums and that top step, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel a bit like so far, we've had 4 rounds. I don't think they've gone as well as they could have done by quite a margin. Like I said, this year so far, the first 3 rounds we've had have been very turbulent in terms of either a really good race 1 or a bad race 2, and just not had that consistent weekend. So I feel like I've lost a chunk of points of where I'd like to be. So the rest of the season now, we just have to go out and, I need to maximise my championship position for qualifying at Alton Park. I've got quite a lot of hybrid, so really try and get into that top 6 for quali, and then again just try and have some decent weekends. And I think you've seen this year how close it is in the championship. That it's although we want to win, it is about points this year more than I think it has been for a while. And it sounds boring, and I hate saying it because I say it all the time, but just 3 consistent races is all we want. 3 top 5s is perfect.
Yeah, and obviously anything above that is a bonus. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Especially with the new hybrid and everything. Yeah, the consistency is the key. Well, look at Ash. I mean, he's had his first win of the season at the weekend, and he's and he's top again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the consistency.
He just had so many. He just keeps on being at the front, having podiums or top 4s, 5s. It's just banging those points in every weekend. That is the key. But believe me when I say it's not easy.
Yeah, easier said than done. Yeah, well, we certainly hope that can happen, for you and all the guys at WSR. There's so many things we could talk about, but I'm very aware of the time. These things always fly when you're having fun. I've got to rattle through just a few questions that came in. Kay Warren earlier on, evening Kay. She said, you and your dad took part in the Mustang race at the members meeting, Goodwood this year. Are you planning on doing some more racing together, if possible?
Yeah. So my dad has come out of racing retirement for the 5th time. And we bought a 1966 Ford Mustang, and we did a race a couple of years ago at Silverstone. Then he had to have like an 18 months out because he had a problem with his eye. Anyway, that's all sorted now.
Super.
And yeah, I mean, what a bucket list weekend that was at Goodwood. Me and my dad racing at Goodwood members meeting together. And, you look at the list of names on that, and there's just me and my dad from Blackburn against these F1 drivers and IndyCar drivers, and then just a couple of guys who sell trucks. Yeah, what a weekend. And he hadn't actually raced competitively for 2 or 3 years, and then jumped in a big, heavy Mustang and drove it around Goodwood. So, no, he did a mega job. And actually, my dad is back out racing on the same weekend we're at Croft.
Okay.
So he's going to be in a historic Mini at Croft.
Oh, brilliant.
So I'll be obviously in the touring car paddock, he'll be in the Mini paddock, but we'll be both racing on the same weekend in the BTCC. So
that's very cool.
Can't wait for that.
No, that's brilliant. We're definitely look forward to that. I did see a question earlier on from a chap called David on YouTube, and this feels like a loaded question. He says, who do you think is/was the best BTCC mechanic? Now, it feels like David might be a mechanic in the BTCC, but I don't know. Saying, is there a best mechanic in the BTCC? We've never been asked that before.
Who's the best mechanic?
Yeah. That's a good one.
I don't know who David is, but I want to say David because he's I think he's rooting for something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It feels loaded, so we'll go with him.
We'll say David. Yeah, well done, David.
Great stuff. Okay, I'm going to have a very quick scroll here. Very, very, very quick scroll. Mark Sykes, he says, where's my beer, Mr. Morgan, for all the virtual liveries I did for you?
Yeah. He did a couple he's done quite a few for my for my sim. So thank you, Mark.
Yeah, good man. Quick one from Keith Mail. Quite a long-winded question, which is never a bad thing. Basically, I was saying about track limit penalties, and things seem to be a bit random and a bit hit and miss. And we had situations at the weekend with the tyre stack at Thruxton, etc., etc. Are the BTCC drivers and the powers that be talking to work towards a solution for it? Because I think everyone was getting irritated with track limits and stuff, and it's fair to say Tim Harvey didn't like the tyre stack at the weekend.
No, he was pretty animated about that, wasn't he? You could tell.
He was
happy. Yeah. But the track limits it's so tricky. And for years, touring cars got away with murder compared to what other championships were getting away with. And you could use the red, white, and blue curve, but you couldn't use the green. Whereas touring cars could use all the green. And now all of a sudden they've clamped down over the last couple of years. And it's the only thing that annoys drivers is if it's inconsistent, and sometimes it's very unmanageable for one person, a judge of fact, to watch 20 cars coming through one corner 100 miles an hour to see if our wheel goes over the curb by that much. Yeah. And it's just it's impossible unless you get the technology to the track.
Lasers or cameras or whatever. Yeah.
You basically need sensors at every corner.
Yeah,
that's the only way you'll be able to do it fairly, and it could be consistent. But it's tricky, and I know we've got to follow these new rules and guidelines. We still get away with, I'd say, more than most. But you try going through church and missing the green exit curb when you're doing 130 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah, it's easy to say, but yeah, try and do it absolutely. Okay, so another couple of quick things before we do some fun questions. Paul Ablett, evening, Paul. Long time no see. I hope you're well, buddy. He said, "Do you think the regs change this year has been a good thing?" With obviously a few changes with hybrid, I guess that's more loaded towards.
I think the hybrid this year has finally done what it was supposed to do 2 years ago. It's provided that element of you press the button, and if the car in front of you hasn't got hybrid, you can overtake them. That does work. There are still bits that need to be, I think, ironed out. For example, at Thruxton in race 1, me and Tom Chilton had the exact same number of laps of hybrid, but because the engineers in the garage can see when they're using hybrid, every time I deployed, Tom's engineer would just come on the radio and say to Tom, "Adam's deploying this lap." So Tom would deploy. So they kind of cancel each other out. There's no real advantage if you're just using it on the same time. So there's still bits that I think need tweaking. It has had an effect on qualifying, which I think is good. Some people haven't got to where they should be because they haven't got as much hybrid. So I think it is working, and I think at Alton Park this next weekend we're going to see a real, because race 2 the top 10 will be on hard tire, and the guys outside the top 10 will be on a soft tire. So that's going to be a real mix-up. That's going to be really interesting and
looking forward to that.
And fun, and probably carnage at Alton Park because it's so tight. So we'll see.
Yeah. Hopefully not too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be an interesting one. Okay, last one from here. Another one from Sharon. So Turkington studies data between races, and Jake has a nap. What do you do?
I just chill. I'm a fairly. So what in the truck you've got? You lift the tail lift up, and the car goes along these ramps. And underneath the ramps are toolboxes, or there's cupboards for storage. So I've managed to steal Colin's old chair, which I have found fits perfectly under one of the cupboards. So I can just sneak into a little cupboard and just put my legs up against the wall, and no one knows I'm there. It's perfect. It's fantastic.
Spot on.
Sometimes people come in and like, "Is Adam about?" And if I see him, I'm like, "Not right now." I can just hide in my cubby hole. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Selective interaction.
Yeah.
Yes. Love that. Oh, that's brilliant. Okay. We always say an hour and a half. It's never an hour and a half. We always rattle on, and it's getting late, and I know you've got the kids and everything. So I'm just going to rattle through some fun questions at the end that we always do. You mentioned Colin McRae. Did you have another favourite driver growing up, apart from Colin? Did you have anyone from the road racing world that you?
Yeah. So grew up playing PlayStation 1 and 2 and Toka 1 and 2. And Alan Menu was my hero.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think it was 2016, he came back to the championship. I think in the
yes.
He's in one of the Passats.
Yes.
He was. Anyway, at Snetterton, I fired him off at turn 2. And Alan Menu marched into the truck and bollocked me. And it was the best day of my life. It was mega. He just came in, pointed and screaming at me, and I was like, "This isn't real. This is."
You're just going.
Yeah. When he left, I asked for his autograph. I didn't.
Oh, I wish you had. That would have been perfect. Okay. Okay. Sorry, Alan. Can you sign this for me?
Yeah. Let's have a selfie.
Excellent. Diffan 2014 VW Passat. Good man. Thank you.
Wow.
Okay. Favorite race? A favorite car that you've raced? Favorite BTCC?
There's been quite a few.
Yeah.
I'd probably say Rick Wood's Capri was pretty special. Yeah, that was pretty good. His Group A one was unbelievable. Is in the Castrol livery.
Yeah.
V6 F1 engine, ridiculous horsepower. Rear wheels were that big, and I was lucky enough to drive that a couple of times around Portimao, and
Oh,
that was just yeah. Unfortunately, the results didn't go our way. We had a couple of DNFs, but the car itself is just a machine, absolute machine.
wow. Oh, Castrol livery, beefy old Capri around Portimao. That's
Yeah, I think it was Castrol. Don't quote me on that, but
Yeah.
it was whatever it was. It was nice.
yeah. I've got Castrol in my head. I'm going to leave it there. That looks good in my mind. That looks very good. Okay, have you got a favourite circuit to race at and one you don't like so much?
Yeah, I raced at Imola. Did a race in a Porsche around Imola, which was
Nice.
I mean, it's just such a the whole place is just beautiful. You know, you're surrounded by trees, and it's just driving through this like almost like through the countryside around the track. It's just a mega fast flowing circuit. It's nice and wide, nice and flat.
Circuit as well.
Yeah, it's a mega circuit. Is that tracks I don't like? Don't know really. It's difficult to say. I mean, you have runs of bad luck, like Alton Park was. I used to hate going there because it was always bad luck, but it's a great track to drive. I think we all enjoy driving a circuit. You know, there's not ones that you think, oh, this isn't fun. So you know, even Silverstone, it's got 3 corners, but it's still good fun to drive.
Yeah.
So no, I couldn't answer that one.
No, fair enough. I've just seen in the comments, Mikey Doble's tuned in. He's just said Adam Morgan, golf bandit. Evening, Mikey.
So we've on a Thursday now, because of, you know, basically me and Mikey started this on a Thursday before each weekend. We do a shakedown, get to the track, and we'll go and play golf.
Right.
For the record, Mikey plays off 1.
Yes. He was on a few weeks ago and he was saying about golf. He could have gone pro.
Yeah, but I've lied about my handicap and beat him every time. So it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah. That's why you have handicaps.
Yeah, exactly.
Simple as that. Happy days. Okie dokie. 2 more. Is there one series that you'd love to have a go in? Something like supercars or NASCAR or
yeah, I think the V8 supercars would be pretty mega. You know, now I've made the switch to rear wheel drive as well. I think even more so. They'd be good fun. Yeah, they'd be fast. Yeah, around those street circuits as well. Just super fast. And
is it Townsville is one of the Townsville's one of the circuits.
Not too sure, but just watch them. I mean, they're millimeters from the wall. And the racing again, it's so close. You know, they never really get spread out. They're always in a tight group. It's good racing.
Yeah, it's a fantastic series. I just want to see one. I can't see it now. Lisa Reinhard, please, Adam, can you get a BMW cap and sign it for Rich to add to his collection? Okay. I'll come and find you at Silverstone. I
can do that because I've got quite a few BMW caps because I don't wear them because I look ridiculous in a cap.
Same here. That's why they're on the wall.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Lisa. That's a very good thing. I think she asked about what's your guilty pleasure. That could cover many different things, couldn't it?
Guilty pleasure. Yeah. I think my simulator's quite a good one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I do like spend. It's one of those things where I'll say to the missus, I'll only be there for an hour. Anyway, 4 hours have gone. And, I've actually got a little mount now where I can put the baby monitor. So I can go on the sim and then have the baby monitor there, so I can still go on the sim.
Oh, that is spot on.
Perfect. Yeah.
It's a little bit of genius there. Okay, this is the final question before I do my final one. Paul Ablett, what car do you drive every day? Good question. What's your daily driver?
So as part of the contract with BMW, they're luckily enough they give me an X5, which is amazing.
Oh,
because they asked me what car I wanted, and I said I've got 3 kids, so it has to be something big.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky enough to have an X5 as my daily driver.
Very nice. That is very nice. Do you use the indicators? No, I shouldn't. I don't ask that. Someone did say you got to put the word indicators in. I don't mean anything by it. That was a bet. Sorry. Right. Okay. Final question. You showed the track with a lot of great drivers. I asked this to everyone. Guys, from like Johnny Adam through to like Maxime Martin, Martin Donnelly for a round as well. Ian Loggy, Rob Austin, Rory, AJ. Dan, Camish, Aidan, Josh, Jake, Flash, Alan Menu, even though you ended him off the track. Fabrizio Giovanardi, Andy Prio, Mark Blundell, Neil Turkington, Sutton, Jason something, Plato, I think it is. Are there any that stand out in your mind as maybe not being the best, but just being someone that's impressed you in the way they go about their racing, or just is a level up from everyone else?
Well, like I said, I've been fairly sheltered, to be fair, being at Sicily, because I've never worked with, another team and seen how they've done it until I've gone to WSR. Colin's approach is so methodical and so his weekends are so structured and stuff. But I don't know. You can take your pick. Everyone has their own way of doing it and looking at it. I've heard Ash is one of those guys who sits in the room with his engineer Tony until 11 o'clock. I know Ingram's the same. He's extremely clued up on setup and balance and fine tuning on damping and stuff. So it's difficult to answer. Take your pick. There's a lot of very fast riders. I mean, some of the names I've raced against at Goodwood, Tom Christensen and people like that.
Yeah,
could be here for ages picking up people, but there's been a lot. I've been very privileged to have a career this long and race against so many world champions, and just genuinely fast people.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to answer it, I think, isn't it? It's absolutely spot on. Perfect. Guys, that's where we're going to end. I mean, we've run over again. We always go too long. I like to say time flies when you're having fun, but it's mainly me asking silly questions. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. There's been loads of you tuning in. I hope you've covered everything. Thank you for the support of the page and the interview. Really appreciate it. We're back again next week. But of course, biggest thanks to you, Adam. Thank you very much, especially as we've run over time-wise. It's been a long day, but thank you very much for coming on, having a chat. It's been great hearing from you.
No, it's been good. I've really enjoyed it. So thanks for having me. And any other questions, just fire them across to me, and I'll try and get back to you.
Fantastic. That sounds good. I think a lot might come from me, but anyway. Yeah, of course, we wish you all the very best for the rest of the season and everyone down at WSR. Yeah, we hope to see you on that top step later on this year, hopefully.
So do I. Thanks very much.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot, everyone. And we'll see you very, very soon. Take care of yourselves and have a good what's left of the evening.
Cheers, guys.